right, we won't need too many props until like for Shavasana. It's mostly going to be working with the balls tonight. We can work with the blocks too, to use them for a little bit of the myofascial work for the legs. And so we'll be starting in a moment on our bellies with the 2 balls. You don't need them in the sock yet. We'll use that a little bit later. So if you have 2 sets, you can keep one outside the balls and one inside, or one inside the sock, one outside. But if you only have 1 set, keep them out for now. So is there anyone who has never done this kind of work? I know some of you said you did. Is there anyone who's never done any kind of like myofascial release with the balls? Everybody? Oh, okay. Brittany hasn't. Anybody else? Kelly hasn't. Okay. Oh, and Joan. Okay. So quite a few of you. So just a couple things to keep in mind with the balls. They can be intense. So just putting that out there. And so we want to just go easy with the pressure, and you're in control of that sometimes based on how much body weight you put into the balls. We want to make sure that we're not putting it on bone. So the balls are meant to release the fascia, right? So we don't necessarily want it right on the bone. So if you find that it's on the bone, you could kind of go like inside the bone, move around a little bit till you find a spot that's tolerable. Sometimes if you just move an inch or so to the right, to the left, up or down, sometimes you can keep it from being too intense for yourself. So keep that in mind. If anything causes pain that's too intense, definitely just come out of it if it's uncomfortable for you. But just know that a little bit of discomfort in this type of a practice is kind of comes with the territory, right? So our fascia, you guys hear me talk about this a lot in our regular yoga practices. So our fascia is always responding to everything that we do. So if we spend a lot of time sitting at a desk, our fascia is going to support that shape. And it starts to get thick in certain areas if we're not moving. So say I'm never doing like a full range of motion with my arm, that fascia starts to thicken up, and then it'll prevent that range of motion. And it gets like stickier, it gets drier. So by doing the ball work, we're helping to stimulate that slide and glide of the tissues underneath our skin. So it helps bring hydration into the tissues. It just helps release where we have knots and adhesions in the tissues. So if I have an adhesion here in my fascia, it's going to make like a knot like that. And I'm like bunching up my shirt. And if I were to like bunch my skin up like that, then I wouldn't be able to move it, right? So we get these little knots in our tissues, and this can help us kind of work some of that out. So we're going to pretty much do the whole body. We're going to do a little bit of back, some legs. We're going to do some hip flexors. We're going to do our jaw, all kinds of places that are going to get some release tonight. So are there any questions before we get started? Okay, so have your 2 balls. I'm going to have a blanket on the mat, and that serves as a cushion, but also it keeps the balls from sliding too much. So it's nice to have a blanket down on your mat. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody, and I'll meet you on your mat in a moment. Feel free to unmute if you have any questions at any time. All right. So we're going to start on our bellies, like in a crocodile position. So we're going to come down, and we're going to slide these balls underneath your, so let's say under the navel, but more off to the side. So it's above your hip bones. So if you find your top of your pelvis, you want it kind of inside that top rim. So when we put our hands on our hips, we want it to go inside the bone. And then we're just going to come down, put those 2 balls, one on each side. And then we're going to rest down onto our forearms. And the legs can be just kind of loose. Let's let them be relaxed. And again, check in with yourself. You might need to adjust here. So decide if you want to move those balls a little bit to the right, to the left, up, down, We are going to move them down for the second part. So for now, kind of right near those hip bones. So right above the hip bones. All right, and then just go ahead, rest down and come to your breath. So working with the breath can help us sort of ease into any discomfort that we might feel with the balls. So allow yourself to kind of breathe nice and slow and soft. So the more you relax your body, the more the tissues are softening, and the more you might feel a little bit more release rather than like the intensity. So doing your best to kind of just relax into this position and send your breath down where those balls are, down into that lower abdominal region. So in yoga speak, we have different flows of energy in our bodies. One of the ways that energy flows is downward. We call that apana. And so when we use the balls on this lower abdominal area, it's stimulating apana in our bodies, working with kind of root chakra energy. And it can release maybe where we're feeling blocked in this area. So we're going to take, maybe like a minute or so in each of these positions. And spend a little more time in this first one, just to really drop into your practice. So I'm going to give you guys about another minute here. I'm going to grab some timers. And as you spend this last minute, just really be aware of your body dropping into the ground. Have a sense of releasing into gravity, letting your tissue soften into gravity. And with every exhale, just feel this sense of landing, dropping, settling. Stay with it a little bit longer, a couple more breaths. We're going to add a variation onto this in a moment. All right, so that was about a minute. So now just adding a gentle rock of your hips side to side. You almost kind of feel like those tissues are getting a little separation in there. And then we're going to pick the feet up off the ground and gently windshield wiper the legs side to side. So this adds a little bit more of that twist. Go easy, go gentle. If those balls start to come out, move them back into place. Good, and then go ahead, let those feet come down. And now go ahead and move the blocks down below those hip bones. So lower into the groin area. So kind of like very close to the hip creases, but maybe slightly above. And this can be a really tender area. If you don't feel much, go ahead and prop yourself up into a Sphinx posture. And that's going to increase the intensity of it. Yeah. And if that's like, whoa, too much, then go ahead and come back down because we've just increased the weight by lifting our body up. And then again, I'm going to flip the timer. We'll stay for a minute and just breathing into this new place. So down here in the groin area, we also have a lot of our lymph. So a lot of lymph nodes in the area of the groin. And when that gets sort of stagnant in there, we have these lymph nodes throughout the body. It's kind of not as efficient as far as ridding the body of toxins. So stimulating the area around the lymph can help us flush things out a little easier. So we've got about 2 or 3 more breaths here in this next position. Remember, relax into it, soften into it. And then again, if you're in Sphinx, go ahead and lower down and pick your feet up. And once again, a little windshield wiper side to side. You don't have to go all the way over, just enough that you feel that little separation of the tissues. And then release, feet back down. From here, we're going to press ourselves up. And we're going to come into child's pose, but I'm going to have you take one ball and place it underneath your forehead. So we get a little acupressure point right on the forehead. And then if you like, you could gently roll your forehead side to side or up and down, just maybe like an inch or so. Just massaging out any tension in the forehead area. And then once you've had a bit of time to move around, just go ahead and drop into it for a couple more breaths. Let's go ahead, take one more breath cycle. And then we're gonna slowly bring ourselves up. Okay, so now we're gonna grab our 2 blocks. Bring your 2 blocks in front of you. And we're gonna put one ball up on each block. I'm just gonna adjust my camera a little bit here, guys. Looks like my screen dropped a bit so you can see everything. I had this really good stand for my iPad and it was working great, and all of a sudden it's losing its stick, so it keeps dropping on me, so I apologize. I'm just gonna move that back. Okay, so from here we're gonna do a version of puppy pose, and we're gonna see if we can put our triceps on the ball. So one tricep on each ball, and bring your palms together and let your head drop down between the blocks and bring your hands behind the back of your head. And then let your arms really just drop into those blocks. Let the head get heavy. Let the chest drop. And find your breath there. So I'm just going to take a peek in at you guys. Make sure you're getting that. Yeah. You need help. I know sometimes the balls are a little tricky to pin them in place. If you wanted to, you could put a blanket over the blocks. Sometimes that can help keep the blocks in place if you're having any trouble there. All right, so we'll take a few more breaths. So know that if you needed to, you could always come out sooner. Otherwise, let's take 3 more breaths. You might even slightly roll forward and back for these last couple breaths. And you'll probably find areas tonight of tension that maybe didn't even know you had. All right, go ahead and slowly come up off of that. And now we're going to just need 1 ball and 1 block. So this one is for our jaw. And it's going to be really helpful for those of us who tend to grind. I can't get this to stay tonight. A little better. Okay, so we're going to have the ball right at the hinge of your jaw, And you're going to put the ball again on your block. And then you're going to just lay down with your head on your side. A little awkward, but this one for me feels amazing. So I always have tension in my jaw. And you let the weight of your head drop into the ball. And you might do a little bit of circular movement, massaging out it's just a strong muscle there. Of course, you know, we use that for chewing, things like that. It can get really tight. TMJ, things like that are going to be relieved a bit by massaging it out. You might just gently open and close your jaws and see how that feels. And try it in a few different spots, like roll a bit forward, open and close your jaws, and then try another spot, open and close. Let's take about 2 or 3 more breaths. All right, and then very slowly go ahead and come out. And you might just want to kind of move it around a little bit after that pressure, see how it feels. And then go ahead and do your other side. So I'm going to just flip around so I can stay facing you guys. Maybe noticing if one side feels a little more tender than the other. Sometimes we have more on one side. And then maybe at first kind of rolling it around a little bit and get some blood flow and circulation into this area. And then find a few spots, open and close your jaws. Then find a new spot and repeat. And just do that a few more spots. And then finally, just kind of settling into one spot, hold it for a few more breaths. All right, and now slowly starting to come off. And we'll set those balls to the side for a moment. Okay, we're going to need one block for the next series. We're going to do a little myofascial release on the thighs using the blocks. We're going to do one leg at a time. So what we're going to do is come onto the belly area again, and you're going to slide the block under one of your thighs. So I'm going to have it on my thigh that's towards you, and you can be up on your forearms for this, almost like you're in your Sphinx or your dolphin plank. And you're going to be kind of, let's say, mid to upper thigh, because we're going to move it down a few times. So mid to upper thigh. And now I have cork blocks, so it's a little more intense. Hopefully it won't be quite as intense on a foam block. And just roll side to side. And getting that corner of or the edges of the block rather, to massage the fibers of the thigh. If it's too much to hold yourself up, you could try lowering down. It's easier for me to be propped up. Now, just go ahead and pause, and we'll lift the leg. So you'll lift your shin rather, not your leg. That would be interesting. And then let it come down. And then just go ahead and do that a few times. Lift the shin and the foot, and then release. We'll do it one more time. Now keep it up there, and again, roll side to side a little bit. So I know we have a few yoga teachers here tonight, so you can keep some of these things in mind when you are planning your classes, for example, if we were doing something that would require some quad flexibility, maybe like some bridge poses or like a Supta Virasana, we could warm up with some myofascial release for our thighs. Now let's go ahead and move that block down. Remember, we don't want it at your knee. You don't want it on the bone. We want it on the flesh. So now it's kind of like mid to lower thigh. And then first, just kind of rocking side to side. So the other leg's on the ground, and we're just shifting a little bit side to side. And then from here, go ahead and pause and lift the leg up and lower it down. Go ahead and do that 2 more times. Lift the leg up and lower it down. And that first series we did with the balls in the groin area and the hip flexor area, that would also be a good release for a back bend. Keep the shin bone up. And again, rock a little bit side to side. We're not going to do it tonight for every pose, but some of these, it's kind of cool to do a before and after. So you could try something like a bridge pose and then do one leg and just see the difference from one side to the other. We're going to do that with down dog in a bit. We'll try a few myofascial releases and then try our dog again. Okay, let's come off of that leg. And then we'll just switch sides. So take your block over to your other thigh, starting kind of more upper to mid thigh. And then once you're in place, you could rock a little bit side to side. Again, noticing, does one leg feel more tender than the other? I definitely feel a big difference with my left leg. I've got more sensation on the left leg. Good, and then pause and we lift and lower. The next time the leg stays up, rock a little bit from right to left, side to side. All right, and release. And let's move that block down. So it's more kind of mid to lower thigh. And repeat that one more time. So starting with a simple rocking right to left. And again, if you needed to, you could rest down a little bit more if you can't weight bear here. And I know if you can't do any weight bearing, of course, you can skip the dog later and just do the myofascial release. Go ahead and bend and straighten a few times. And then the next time the shin comes up, again, rock it side to side. And then release. And go ahead and remove your block. Okay, we're going to do a child's pose again. So grab your 2 balls. For some of us, the balls are going to be a little too intense for this one. If you try the balls and it's too intense, I want you to use a folded pillow or a blanket behind the backs of your knees. So you could take a yoga blanket and fold it in half and put that on your calves, or you're going to use your 2 balls. Okay, so I'm going to stick the balls right behind the backs of my knees. And then maybe you can go a little wider with those knees. How far you come down with your hips is negotiable. So I'm like sticking my butt up a little bit. You can let it get heavier, but then that's going to kind of give you more of the smashasana on those calf muscles. So if that's too intense, lift your hips a bit. And then if you can, stack up your hands and put your forehead on your hands. And then breathe into it. If the balls are too much, just use a blanket. You're still going to get some stimulation to those tissues and it won't be quite as intense. You could also put your head on a block if bringing your head to your hands is too far. See if you can breathe through the intensity. We're going to take just a few more breaths. One more. And then we'll slowly start to come out and take those balls out from behind the backs of the legs. Okay, so those of you who can do a down dog, we're going to do a before and after, just to kind of see what it feels like in the back of our calves, the Achilles, and in through the foot. So we have a whole chain of fascia that goes from our foot up the back of the leg, up through our spine into our neck, and it's called the bladder meridian in Chinese medicine, but it's our back chain of fascia. So if we start to loosen it up in one area, oftentimes we find relief in other areas. So before we do the myofascial release, let's just check in and see what our down dog feels like in the back of our calves and our ankles. So from a tabletop, you could walk your hands forward, tuck your toes and lift up. And then just kind of notice how far is it to the floor with my heels. Now I can get my heels down. I feel a lot of stretch in the back of the calves, back of the Achilles. But we've already done a lot of work on our legs, so you might feel pretty good. So just see how that feels. And then we're going to come down and grab one block. Okay. So we're going to use the block to massage out the calf muscles. Hold on one second. I want to see you guys better, so I'm going to put my glasses on. Okay. So put your calf, actually, let's put this block up on the middle setting. And then put your calf right up on the block. And then use your leg to kind of tip the block so it's on an angle. And then again, roll your calf side to side over the corner of the block. And then we're going to do it in a couple spots. So maybe move forward or back and do it again. And then on your own, kind of go up and down the whole length of your calf muscle. So you don't want to get too low or we're not going to be able to balance. So I'm about maybe a few inches above the Achilles. I started about midpoint, so I'm going to go up a little higher now, but make sure you just kind of get all the spots. And we're going to do one leg and try our dog again before we do the other leg. So you have a comparison. It's kind of cool. So give it one more spot. So I'm like kind of close to behind my knee. Ooh, that's a sore spot in there. Okay. And now let's let that go. And now we're going to do our foot. So grab one ball and put your foot on the ball and just kind of massage out the foot with the ball. Now, if you want, you can also stand up and get even more weight on the foot if you want to get a little more intense pressure there. So just kind of massage all around the bottom of the foot. You could even kind of lift your hips up, like almost like a reverse tabletop, and then you get a little more leeway, a little more pressure, and you can push into the foot more. So that's another way you could do this. Really get into like the arch of your foot. There's kidney points in there, kidney meridian, very grounding to hit those points. Okay, so now let's do a down dog again, if you can, and compare that leg to the other leg. And now, you know, that leg I just did, my heel is way more grounded. I feel like there's less stretch happening than in the other leg. So just kind of noticing what it is like for you, and then we'll do our other side. So coming down when you're ready, and then let's do the other calf. So go ahead and start whenever you're ready. I'm just going to grab a quick drink and roll out your calf muscle. Maybe start at one end or the other. So this is really great if you know that for you, your dog is always kind of tight, and you might, maybe you round your back a lot in your dog. That's that whole back chain of fascia, right? So if we're tight in our hamstrings, we're going to tend to round our lower back. So if we work on our calves and our feet, it could actually improve our hamstring flexibility as well. And that could also include the fascia along our back, along our spine. So go ahead and just keep going all the different spots. You want to maybe do at least 5 spots or so on the calf. And make sure you're tipping your block on an angle as we get a little bit more into the tissue when we do that. And then let's do maybe one more spot. Again, comparing if one leg feels a little more tender than the other. Okay, and then you can release that. And then we'll do the foot. So grab your block and you can massage out your foot. Again, if you want to lift your hips up, then you can get a little bit more weight on that foot. But if you can't weight bear, just skip that and just massage out the foot. You could even do it standing if you don't want to have any weight at all on your hands. So when I do it in a yoga class, sometimes I'll do it standing. Because just for pajama yoga, we're not going to get up as much. All right, and when you feel like you've really massaged out that foot, make sure you get your arch really good, and then maybe try your dog one more time and just see if you've kind of evened things out a bit. And that's about as active as we'll get tonight doing a down dog. I just feel a lot more ease up through the legs when I do that myofascial release. Okay, so let's come back to sitting, and we're going to use one ball again. This time we're going to get into the sit bone area. So again, that's hamstring attachment. We're going to cross the right ankle over the left knee, coming into a figure 4, and then stick your ball underneath the right sit bone area. And then you're actually going to kind of get up on that sit bone. Now, if you can't put weight, you're just going to kind of hold on, and you can just rock into it and not put weight on your hands. If you can put weight on your hands, you can lift yourself up on top of the ball and make a circle. So kind of circle around your sit bone and massage out all that tissue in there. So we're getting into the glute, into the maybe piriformis area a bit, glute medius, glute maximus, and a little bit of hamstring attachment. This one's really good if you are working on hip openers. say you want to do like some pigeon poses, things like that, we can release this area before we would do a pose like that. All right, and then go ahead and switch sides. I'm just gonna fix my blankets. They're sliding away. So now left ankle crosses over. And get that ball right underneath the sit bone. You can either prop yourself up or just kind of rock a little bit side to side. And circle around. If you find a really good spot, you might want to kind of hang out there for a little bit. It's one of those hurts so good kind of things with this one. This one can be pretty intense. All right, and let's go ahead and come off of that. And then we're gonna now put the ball in the sock. So put your two balls in, and I even make a little knot on the end so that the balls don't start to slip out. So I'll give you a moment to get that set. Two balls in your sock and make a knot at the end. All right. We're gonna do the IT bands next. This is another like really hurts so good area. So the IT bands are on the sides of the legs, and they give stability to our pelvis, our hips, and our knees. And it's a really thick band of fascia right here. So thick that it's just like not very flexible. And it can get tight if we do a lot of, walking, balancing, things like that. Even sitting can be hard on them. So there's a lot of things that can affect them. So we're gonna come onto our side and stick the balls, let's say like kind of right above the knee. So we'll start a little bit on the lower end of the side of the thigh. You can prop yourself up on your forearms. You can go all the way down if you need to be off of your arms. And then just kind of rock side to side. Getting into the IT band tissue. You might even kind of rock forward and back. Like you're going to go right and left, but also down toward the mat, the end of the mat, forward and back. So a couple different ways to do that. You could also just kind of hang out there and let the weight sink in. Some of us, that's a little too intense just to let the weight go, but I kind of like it. So see what works for you. Now, for me, as I get up higher, it gets a little more intense. So I wanted to start at the lower end, but for some people, it's more intense down there. So it all depends on where you're holding that tightness. Now, go ahead and move it up a little bit. So you're kind of mid-thigh area. And again, rock a little bit, and how much weight you put on it is up to you. If you kind of stay a little bit more to the back, there's going to be less weight. If you come right on top of it, ooh, that's pretty intense. So you control how much weight you want to put on it. Going a little bit forward and back, side to side, getting into all the tissues. Of course, it's important to be hydrated, eat healthy. Things like natural collagen are really good for our fascia. So like bone broth would have that kind of a collagen content in it. Cooking down your own bone broth too. And then maybe sink into it for a moment if you can handle it. Too much, just keep it moving. How much weight you put on it, completely negotiable. All right, and then let's move it up one more time. So now toward the upper thigh area. And go ahead, same thing, rocking forward and back, right to left and up and down. Now we're getting a little bit closer up into the area of the TFL that connects into the IT band at the top of the hip. Again, things like pigeon pose, even like, you know, when you do any kind of cross your ankle over your knee, this is good work to do with that kind of a pose. And then see if you can hang out, find a spot where you can let your weight come into it. Remember to breathe here, guys. I know it's tempting to just hold your breath. And the breath helps those tissues soften. All right, go ahead and release that. And we'll come over onto the other side. Starting down low toward the knee, but remember we're not on the knee. And again, rocking forward and back, side to side, up and down. We want to make sure that we don't go too intense. Sometimes when we go too intense, especially on the IT band, it could tighten up more if we go like to the point where we're bringing tears to our eyes. So go gentle on yourself. And then just kind of lean into it for a few breaths. So our tissues are always responding not only to the positions that we sit in or hold ourselves in. So for example, for a bike rider, that's another pattern that the tissues will build up. The tissues also respond to our thoughts and our emotions. So if we are in a fearful situation, a lot of us have felt that over the past year, our tissues tend to tighten up and they contract inward as a means of protecting us from whatever threat is coming. So let's move it up a little bit. So there's an emotional component to the tightness in our tissues. And if we have had any kind of accident, go ahead and keep moving. If we have an accident, then we have a vulnerable area, and that area will tend to tighten up first, right? So I've hurt my shoulder one time, I fell on it. So if I tend to be like even cold, right? We just came out of winter time. Our tissues are going to tighten up in the winter time to protect us from the elements. Lean into it, hold it for a few breaths if you can. So our tissues respond to danger, threat, fear, emotions. Doing our yoga practices and this kind of work, myofascial release, can help them soften. As well as some of the somatic work I do, it's also really good for it. Okay, move it up one more time toward the top of the hip, but not so far up that you hit your hip bone. Okay, so close up to it as you can. And then again, move around. Almost done with this IT band work. Ooh, that's pretty juicy right there. Noticing your sides. So if we hold more tension on one side versus the other, which most of us do, you know, that's an imbalance. One side chronically tight, sometimes the other side is chronically weak. And after you've had some moving around time, just pause, let your weight drop in if you like. After this, we're going to be doing some work on our backs. So that'll feel good. All right, go ahead and slowly come off. We're going to keep the balls in the socks. And just come onto your back for a moment and just let the legs stretch out. Just Feel how it is in those legs now through the IT bands, the outer hips, the glutes, your thighs, the feet. We hit the whole leg. Take a few breaths. So next round, we're going to work a bit into the shoulders and the back. So we're going to take the balls and we're going to put them, we're going to need to kind of separate those balls a bit. So make sure your sock is not too tight. So I want to be able to have like a fist in between my two balls. And we're going to put that in our traps. So upper trapezius, fleshy part, right at the kind of very, very top of your shoulders on your back. And your head's going to come to the floor. Now, just being here might be already pretty intense. So see how that is? We all hold a lot of tension in our traps. If we do a lot of desk work, typing, the traps are always just a little bit elevated. And when they're a little bit elevated, they're always a little bit contracted. And so they get chronically tight. And this is a good way to start to release them. Now, if this feels pretty good and you want to go a little bit more, we could lift the hips up into a little bit of a bridge. So lift the hips a few inches and boy, that's going to put more weight in those traps. And you might just kind of rock a little bit side to side. If it's too much, keep those hips down, of course. And then let's all release back down. Good. Okay, move the balls down a little bit. So now they're still on either side of your spine, but not so much at the very top anymore. Kind of right above the shoulder blade area. So still upper back. First, just kind of let your weight drop into the balls. Take a few breaths. If you feel like your head is like really dropping back, you could always stick a pillow or a blanket underneath your head. Most of us are probably okay, but if it bothers you, just definitely support your head. And now let's take the arms up toward the ceiling. Good. And like you're climbing a rope, reach one arm up as high as you can, like you're going to touch the ceiling, and then the other arm up as high as you can. And just go side to side. Good. Now, hold opposite elbows. Keep your arms right over your shoulders. Drop the arms over to the right. And then drop the arms over to the left. And just go side to side a few times. Remembering to breathe and go nice and slow. Our tissues respond to slowness. When we move quickly, it's almost like a trauma, right? When we go really fast, our tissues are thinking we're in danger. So if we slow down, creating a sense of safety, they're going to respond more to that slowness. All right, go ahead and come back to center. Readjust your balls if you need to. They sometimes move out of place. And then just arms at your side. As you inhale, sweep the arms up and over your head like you're doing a snow angel. So you might need to move any props that are in your way. So I need to move down a little bit. So I've got all my props are behind me. So just do a couple rounds of snow angels. Arms reach up and arms reach down. Go ahead and do 2 more rounds like that. Arms overhead and down. Now see if you could keep those arms reaching overhead for a moment. Again, let those balls settle. Push into your feet and roll the balls down a little bit more. So now maybe they're kind of like right around the area of the shoulder blades. If it's uncomfortable, you can adjust, put them somewhere mid-back. That might feel good for you. And then take your arms up again and give yourself a big hug. So you're gonna wrap the arms around your chest like you're doing a bear hug. And pull the shoulder blades away from each other, protracting. And then gently rock side to side. If any of these are too much, you could always go back to another spot that felt good for you. So as we get more in the area of the rib cage and the shoulders, it does get a little more intense. All right, switch the crossing of your arms and do that a few more rounds, rocking side to side. You could also just stay still here if you wanted to. All right, and then relax, arms down. Take your hands behind the back of your head now. Adjust your balls again so they're in a position that feels good for you, one on either side of the spine. Inhale and arch your back as if we're doing like a cat-cow. The spine arches away from the ground. And as you exhale, see if you could lift your head and shoulders in a little bit of a curl upward. And then inhale, come down, arch your back, lift through your diaphragm area, and then exhale, lift up. Again, if it's too much, you could slide the balls to a different spot, or maybe just take them out if it's too much. Let's do one more cycle. And then release. And we're going to take the balls out, set them to the side, and come down on your back. And just let your back settle into the ground now. Take a couple of breaths. All right, so we're going to do a little bit more specific onto the shoulder blades now. We're going to take the balls back out of the sock now. So we just need one ball at a time. Give you guys a moment to do that. I didn't want to go right to this one because this one's more intense. So I wanted to do the double ball stuff's a little more, little bit easier to handle. We're going to take that ball and put it under the shoulder blade somewhere or around the shoulder blade. Arms can be kind of goalpost or down at your side. I kind of like the goalpost here. And then we're going to just circle around the shoulder blade. So you might have to lift your hips a little bit, and you're just going to circle it around. When you might occasionally have to pop that ball back in. Hips can be lifted or not. It's a little awkward, but just kind of roll it around in there. Helps to loosen up that tissue around the shoulder blade. Just move around however it feels good there. All right. And then from there, we're going to take that out again and put it on the side of your neck and come down. And this time you're going to hold it in place with your hand. So I've got that ball somewhere between the hairline and the side of the neck. So kind of on the occipital ridge area. And then you could kind of rock your head side to side, getting into the upper fibers of the neck. So slowly move your head in different directions. And if the ball will stay, you could always let go of your hand, but for this one, I really like to just hold the ball in place. If you find a nice sore spot, go ahead and just pause and let your weight go into the ball and take a few breaths. So we all hold a lot of tension here right around the occipital ridge, particularly if we tend to stick our chin out when we're sitting at our desk, or we stick our chin out when we're doing our cobra poses, and we kink our neck. So this is going to help bring some flow into these stagnant areas in the back of the head. Also related to our eyes. So the occiput, right? Occipital relates to our eyes. All right, let's do that on the other side. Take that ball onto the other side of your neck, close to your hairline, and then just roll your head gently from side to side. If you find a good spot, just hang out there and let your weight go right down into the ball. All right, so coming off of that, put the ball right in the center of the back of your skull so that it's really close to the neckline, right about where your hairline is. And then we're just going to stay there for about a minute, just pressing right in the center. So that's an acupressure point there as well. Just let your weight of your head drop into the ball. So I'm going to give you guys about a minute there. Just want to kind of check on some things, see where we're at here. So stay with it, nice, smooth, even breaths. Let's take about 30 more seconds there. All right. So go ahead and slowly now slide that block out. Take a nice full body stretch here and then hug your knees into your chest. Give a good squeeze. We're going to roll over onto one side and we're going to come up to sit and grab one block. So we're going to get into the back ribs a little bit more. You're going to put your block behind you. You're going to sit in front of it. And then we're going to lean back onto the block. And you want the block to kind of catch in between your ribs if you can. You might not be able to sense that, but just kind of feel around a little bit. And then bring your hands behind the back of your head. So you're supporting the back of your head. Good. Now first, just kind of lean back and lift up a little bit. And feel that block press into the tissues of the back ribs. And now we're going to twist a little bit from right to left. So just kind of roll over toward the right and then roll over toward the left. It's like you're doing kind of a side bend. And you can lean back a little bit farther if that feels okay. Take it a little bit more that your chest is facing the ceiling as opposed to forward. Go side to side a few more times. Maybe you'll go down and up a few times again. And this one can be a little intense. And then we're going to move the block. So now adjust and move your hips a little forward and find a new spot. And again, hands behind the back of the head. And we lower and lift a few times. So this can help loosen up the tissues in the back body. Again, bladder meridian is going through here. Bladder meridian relates to the water element in our bodies, relates to fear. You can go side to side. And if we're really kind of tight in that whole back chain of fascia in our bodies, chances are we have anxiety too. It's just a body pattern that's very common. Some of us have the opposite, where the front chain is really tight and we're more collapsed through our chest, and that might be associated more with more of a depressed state. So this can help open things back up. All right, let's try one more position. I know it's getting a little hard on the neck, so this will be the last one. So kind of up a little bit higher toward the shoulder blades. Support your head. Try to relax your neck as much as you can. And then first kind of lift up and down. How far back? Again, negotiable for you. And then we go side to side. Maybe even feel like you're making a circle or semicircle here. And then we'll slowly release. Take the block out and just come down on your back for a moment. And just feel how that is to just release into the ground. Take a few breaths there. Let's see, let's go ahead and take 2 more breath cycles. All right. Go ahead and roll to your side. We'll come on up. So now we're going to do the sides of the rib cage. This whole series is really nice for breath too. So in yoga, we have restriction here in the area of the rib cage that can make it harder for us to have our respiration. So if we soften the tissues around and inside the ribs, that can be helpful for our breathing. So this is going to be on the side. So we're going to be propped up on our side, and you're going to take the edge of the block, and it's going to go into the kind of mid rib cage area, and see if you can kind of catch the flesh in between the ribs if possible. Now, if anyone has like fragile ribs, like an osteoporosis type of situation, be really mindful here how much weight you put on. Most of us are just fine with this, but I just want to put that out there. If you know that's you, just don't put too much weight down. Now, if you can, come down and put your head on your hand. Now, this is too intense. Put a blanket over your block. So if you do tend to be a little more fragile in your bones, that might be helpful too. And then go ahead and do that rock forward and back. And this, again, we might find some sore spots and tender spots in the sides of the ribs here. This is spleen meridian, I think, on the sides here. And if you find a good spot, you might just kind of want to even hang out there for a moment and breathe and let that tissue soften up. So particularly on our left side, so I'm doing my right side right now, a lot of us have extra tension on that left side because our heart's a little closer on that side. And I find this in a lot of my private clients. They've got tightness on the left side of the rib cage, especially if they're dealing with something where they want to protect their heart. So if you have a lot of heart, grief, those kinds of things, it kind of pulls in that tissue around the heart and gets tight here in the side ribs. So it'll be interesting for you to compare right side and left side. Now we're going to move it so that that block comes right in the armpit. So it's at the very top of our ribs, and it also hits the tricep on the arm. So it's kind of right wedged in between your armpit. Top of it catches the top of my ribs, kind of top of my side body, and the other side catches the tricep, and it can be pretty intense. And then again, you might rock a little bit forward and back if it's not too much, or you might stay where you are. This one here is like, whoa, really intense. Now, the more you do these types of things, it's not going to be as painful the next time you do it, right? So I know it's like that intensity is there, but as we do these techniques, you'll find the next time you do it not quite as sore if you do it on a regular basis. Because we've moved some of that stuck, stagnant energy. It's almost like breaking the dam open, right? So when we stop doing it, the energy can flow through these areas that we just pressurized. All right, let's release that. Come on up. And when you come off it, you might even feel like a little sense of flushing through the area, some warmth, some tingling. So just notice. And then when you're ready, we'll do the other side. So first time, we're going to be lower into the side of the ribs. So just pick a spot somewhere and see if you can catch the edge of the block in between the bones. And then your head could come down into your hand. You could also let your head drop if you can't do that weight bearing. You could even put a pillow there if you wanted to. Make sure you're breathing. We don't want to hold the breath. Notice the difference between your first side and your second side. And then rocking a little gentle forward and back. So this is also the area of the serratus anterior, kind of a muscle that helps us with our shoulder protraction, helps us in things like our plank poses or dolphin poses. So they can get really sore if we do a lot of weight bearing in our arms. So this would be a nice one to do after a nice arm balancing practice where we're doing a lot of handstands or arm balances. Just massage out the serratus and the sides of the shoulder and into the arm. If you find a sore spot, you might want to hang out, last couple of breaths. Really let your weight drop into your block. Okay, so now we're gonna come up and slide it into the armpit. So it's catching the top of the chest and the tricep. And then once you find your spot, you can do your rocking forward and back. Remember to move nice and slowly, nothing too quickly here, so we can let the tissues feel safe to release. Again, if there's a sore spot, maybe wanting to hang out there for a little bit. Couple of breaths. All right, and then we'll slowly come up. And again, just like feel that sensation of the energy flowing through. You can set that off to the side. Okay, so we're going to come into a seated position. And just do a little bit of work into the neck and chest. So bring your both hands onto the right side of your chest, right below your collarbones. And if you don't mind, you can even go make sure you're on the flesh with one of the hands. That would even be more effective. So put your hand underneath your shirt if you can. And you're going to pull slightly down with the tissues and then drop your head over to the other side. And you're going to feel that nice stretch into the tissue of your neck. And then gently rock your head forward and back, all the while pulling the tissue down. Go slowly here. And the next time your head tips back, pause. And take your bottom teeth over your top teeth. Pull down with your hands. And then slowly, slowly release. Let your hands come down and then just kind of move your head around a little bit. Let's do the other side. Slide one hand underneath your shirt. Other hand could be on top and pull the chest tissue downward. Tip your head over to the other side. And then gently rock your head forward and back. Keep breathing. It's amazing how much tension we hold here in the neck muscles. Let's do one more, and then the next time your head tips to the back, hold it there. And take your bottom teeth over your top teeth and pull down with your hand. Lift your chin. And now slowly, slowly release. And when you get to the top, sometimes it just feels good to move that around a bit. Okay, and now both hands on the center of your chest. Again, if you want to go under clothing, you can. And then you're going to pull down with both hands, tip your head slightly back. Bring your bottom teeth over your top teeth. Stretch out your throat center. So this is an area that can be blocked as well. Throat is said to be like our channel of energy between our heart and our heads. And when those two things are kind of fighting each other, or we're not expressing ourselves, what needs to come out, we talked about that in the morning class today, the energy can get stuck. So open that channel here. And then slowly release. Let your hands come down and then maybe again, just move it around a little bit. Good. Okay, I think we're just about ready to call things to a close. I want to do one more neck release. So we're going to take our block And we're going to come down onto our backs. We're going to have your ball on top of the block, and you're going to do another little neck massage. This is going to go underneath your head and neck. Go ahead and ease yourself down. Your feet can be flat as a little leverage. And you're going to find that block again somewhere around the occipital ridge area. And then you're going to roll your head side to side. And you might play with the angles of maybe twisting your head to look toward your shoulder. And just kind of roll across that whole area. Now, watch that your hair doesn't get tangled. I like to kind of pull my hair out of the way. And just go a little bit side to side. You might, replace your ball every so often. And I like to kind of just like put the ball slightly off center and then roll my head off the ball. And it gets more a little bit into the side. So you can just kind of play with that. Maybe even get a little lower into the neck. So rather than right at the hairline, go a little bit lower, and then you get into the neck muscles a bit. So I'm just going to give you another minute or so to play with this. And then again, putting that ball right in the center, letting your head drop into the ball, into the block. Let's take about 3 more breaths right there. After that 3rd breath, go ahead, take your ball out and take your block out and hug your knees into your chest. You can rock a little bit side to side across your lower back. If you would feel like a finishing pose, like a happy baby or something, you're welcome to take that here. And then when you're ready, we're going to set up for restorative shavasana if you have some props. If you don't have any props, you can just set up whatever you have. You can be flat on your back. So I'm going to take a set of bed pillows. If you have a yoga bolster, you can use that. But I usually just show bed pillows because not everyone has the bolsters at home. So 2 of your bed pillows would make a bolster. And then something for your head as a little extra pillow. And then finally, if you have something for under your knees, you could roll up a blanket, or you could use another bed pillow or a sofa pillow underneath your knees. And then we're going to come back, making sure that you lengthen out of your spine a little bit as you drape yourself back. Go ahead and cover up if you feel like you might be cold. Grab an eye covering if you want, and then let your arms start to drape down at your sides. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to get yourself situated, and I'm going to do a guided meditation to continue to help you liquefy through your tissues and soften. So I will wait till I see everybody is still and ready. Make any last minute adjustments so that you can commit to being very still. And then once you are settled, let's take a few moments to come to your breathing. I'm starting to notice the rise and fall of the abdomen, the lower belly, as the diaphragm moves up and down. So feeling and sensing into the movement of the diaphragm. As you inhale, the fascia around your heart is getting a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of stimulation. As the diaphragm moves down, it creates more space in the heart for our blood to flow. It takes a little longer for that blood to flow through the heart as we inhale. And the brain starts to send a signal back to the heart to kind of speed that flow of blood up so the heart rate just a little bit increases when we inhale. When we exhale, feeling the diaphragm move back into position, and then the heart gets a little more compression, less space for the blood. The blood has less place to travel, sending that brain to the heart to slow the heart rate down a little bit. And so it's in this way that we create a good heart rate variability as our breath moves in and out, the diaphragm moves up and down. With every exhale, just starting to let yourself drop again into the ground. And start to imagine that your body is like a drop of water. We know that our tissues are made up of mostly water. But when we don't move our bodies or massage our bodies or stimulate the tissues, they start to get a little drier and stickier. We have less range of motion and less fluidity in our bodies, less ability for the prana, chi to flow through the tissues if we have stagnation. So imagining you're like this drop of water, landing on the ground, allowing your body to disperse into gravity like a drop of water. Imagining the outermost layer of your body, the skin, starting to liquefy. Softening through the outer body so that the borders of your body start to feel less defined. And then we go a layer deeper under the skin to the superficial fascia. And imagine that this layer underneath the skin is starting to liquefy. Feel the fluid sense of the fascia right underneath your skin. And this is where our lymph is located, close to the surface, which is why when we do skin brushing, that stimulates our lymph and the detoxification process. Now going another layer deeper from the superficial fascia, going to the connective tissue that holds our muscles to our bones. And also, just all the things like ligaments and tendons. And see if you can have a sense of allowing the ligaments, the tendons, some tissues that are holding our muscle to the bone to start to soften and liquefy and release toward the ground. And then the muscles themselves, which are all penetrated throughout the muscle by the fibers of fascia. See if you can have a sense of the fascia within your muscles softening and the muscles themselves liquefying, as if they could fall gently away from the bone. Muscles all soft, all fluid. Whole body melting. And then to the layer of your organs, letting those organs be soft, fluid. Let them release toward your back body into the ground. We can even get these areas of blockage and adhesions in and around the organs. So feeling a sense of freedom in the area of our digestive system. Let your heart be soft. Liquefy your heart space. On your right side, feeling a release into the liver, and on the left side into your stomach. Feel releasing of the reproductive organs. Organs of elimination, all liquefying, relaxing. Finally, deepest layer still, fascia penetrates and goes through our bones, giving them stability. So soften the connective tissue that penetrates your bones. In this deepest layer of our body, let the bones themselves become liquid, the marrow of your bones. The whole body dispersing into the ground, merging into the space around you. In this place of being very fluid and liquid-like, imagine that energy is just flowing through your body, unimpeded. There are no blockages. The adhesions are dissolved. Pain has released. You're in this state of true bliss and true healing. Taking just a few more moments to observe and enjoy this place of complete and total relaxation. All right, so all good things must come to an end. We're going to start to come out of this deep state by first just feeling your body on the ground again. So re-inhabit your physical body. We've kind of just gone out into another dimension. So Ground yourself. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel your bones again. Feel your skin. Let your breath come into your body a little bit deeper to enliven your tissues. And as you feel ready, start to make some small movements. Maybe just your fingers and toes. Eventually, you might circle out some wrists or ankles. Give yourself some stretch time. When you feel ready, go ahead and come over onto your right side for a brief pause. So try not to pop up. I want you to hold on to this rest and relaxation. And after you've had a few moments on your side, you can slowly, in your own time, come up to a comfortable seat. If you like to sit on a pillow or a blanket, feel free to do so. And then we'll sit up nice and tall and just stay here for another moment. If it's comfortable for you, go ahead and close your eyes. Find your breath once again, letting your shoulders drop. Bring your awareness to that area in the back of the skull, the occipital ridge, and gently lift it, letting your chin drop slightly down. Follow the in-breath and the out-breath. I'm going to finish with the final reading as you stay here for another couple moments. This is from Jeff Foster, The Way of Rest. Stop just for a moment. Feel the magic of the in-breath and the out-breath, one breath at a time. Feel the belly rising and falling in its own sweet time like an ocean wave. Feel the air moving through the nostrils, down the back of the throat. Feel how deeply the air moves into the body. Notice what's alive in your body right now. Come out of the story of past and future, of regret or anticipation, and give some kind of attention to the dance of physical sensation happening here, now, where you are. A sensation in your shoulders, a pressure in your forehead, an excited feeling in your chest, fluttery feeling in your stomach. If you find an area of discomfort, be present with it. Don't try to get rid of it or make it go away. Don't label it or judge it as bad or negative. Don't even try to heal it. Sometimes even healing can be a subtle form of resistance. And if you notice any resistance, allow that to be here too, remaining curious, fascinated. Allow all thoughts to come and go. Thoughts are clouds, you are the sky. The space for all thoughts. Don't try to delete or quiet them down. Embrace their glorious noise and know that they are not who you truly are. Don't try to make anything happen. You're not seeking a different experience or state. Become curious about this experience, this day, this moment, this immediacy where you are now. What's it like to be alive here and now, uniquely you? Meet this moment in its freshness. You cannot be truly curious about your immediate, embodied, present experience and be stuck in a story of fear and regret at the same time. If premature conclusions are the disease, if fear and stress are the symptoms, open-hearted curiosity is the only true medicine. This moment is your anchor, your cosmic home in a chaotic, ever-changing world. You're calm in the midst of the storm, and the storms have always passed. All right, let's go ahead, bring our hands together in front of the heart space. Have a nice inhale, allowing the heart to lift. And as you exhale, bow your head to meet your heart. And thank you so much, everyone. Namaste. All right, guys, so feel free to unmute yourselves. I can't do that for you, and share any thoughts that you have, any feedback. How did we do? How do you guys feel? Good?
That shoulder release was what I needed.
Yeah, good. Oh, can't get this thing to stay up. There it goes. Okay. All right. Well, any questions about anything? Anything too intense for you guys? Everything did okay?
It's a great practice. Thank you.
That was
Good.
awesome.
Thank you, guys. So I do have somatic on Sunday if anyone's interested in that. Another great way to work with the tissues. We're going to work on a practice that helps with pranayama, with breath. So it's going to be a lot of shoulder and rib cage stuff too, just not with balls. We'll just do some somatic movements. So that's through West End Yoga on Sunday. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. And thank you so much for coming out tonight. It was great to spend the evening with you guys. Thank you.
That was great.
Thank
Thank you.
Have a good night's rest,
Night.
everybody. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.